I'm Lucy.
And I'm Jennifer.
You're listening to Everything I Know About.
Each week, we share everything we know about a new topic, equipped with some internet research and a little too much exposure to pop culture.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
The inspiration behind today's episode is from NPR's Consider This podcast. The full podcast, which was only like 15 minutes, poses this question of why having fun feels so hard as an adult. And I feel like as I've gotten older, unadulterated fun, pure joy, those moments have happened less and less. As I was reflecting on it, I see 3 reasons why it feels, in my life at least, so much harder to have fun. I think one is adulting and having more responsibilities like paying bills, and not just in my own life, but like also in the news, the world we live in, climate change, wars. It doesn't feel easy to take a lighthearted approach to life when you're just weighed down by responsibility. 2, as you get older, there's less novelty because you've already experienced so many things for the first time in the past, and also less imagination. Like when I think about Christmas, I loved Christmas as a kid. It was the best, so fun. And as an adult, even when I've tried to recreate those moments, it never feels the same because you can't just convince yourself as an adult that something magical is happening.
That's so true.
And then the third, social media and the rise of performance, self-awareness when it comes to my own ability to have fun. Suddenly, I feel the pressure to always be taking out my phone, capturing the fun and showing other people how much fun I'm having. Even though I have only, 50 followers who are my friends, even meals, like I need to take a photo of the dish before I can even start eating.
It's funny, like one of the articles, they were talking about how one of the things in order to have fun that you need to do is be completely present and in flow state. And inherently taking pictures for social media to induce FOMO in other people is performative. So you are by definition not having fun when you are documenting your experience of having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And the best definition, maybe we found the same one, the best definition I found was from this author, Catherine Price, who wrote The Power of Fun. She defines fun as the intersection of 3 states. 1, playfulness, which she defines as taking a lighthearted approach, lighthearted attitude towards life. 2, connection, which can be with other people or nature. And then 3, flow, which is when you're present and engaged, not distracted. I feel like this definition does resonate with me. And as I was reflecting on it, I was like, I'm like never in that state because of this phone habit.
What do you think of when you think of times that you've had fun as an adult?
Immediately, my brain goes to like traveling, being somewhere new and experiencing things for the first time. I've realized my personality is very drawn to novelty, and I think novelty is important to me. So even if I'm doing the exact same thing that I would do in New York, like going to a coffee shop, if I'm doing it in Tokyo and I've never been in that neighborhood before, it feels so magical to me. And I think that's part of the reason why when I look back, and some of this could be the rose-colored glasses of nostalgia, like everything in the past always seems so nice and you forget sometimes the things that weren't so great. But when I look in the past, I'm like, the first time I got on a flight, that was fun to me. And I remember feeling things as the plane was taking off. The first time that I did my first international trip alone, I flew to Ghana, and I remember when the plane touched down, everybody clapped. And now when that happens, I find it so cheesy. I'm like, why are people clapping? This is ridiculous. Is this their first flight? But then when that happened to me the first time, I was like, yes, right up in there, clapping with everybody else.
Not taking yourself too seriously, just clapping.
Yeah. So we each took on the challenge of doing a little experiment and seeing if knowing these things about ourselves and like what creates fun for us individually, we could recreate it if we were super intentional. And so I decided to leave my phone at home. My husband, Avery, and I went to Harlem, actually. I've never been to Harlem. I'm kind of embarrassed to say, even though I've lived in New York now for almost 3 years. It just always has seemed so annoying to get to. I live in Brooklyn, so it is a bit of a trek. Like it took me an hour 15 on the train to get up to 125th. But last night we went up to Harlem and just started walking east. Since I didn't have my phone, I feel like I use my phone kind of as a defense mechanism. Like I'll look down so nobody talks to me, or I'll be like looking at directions or like trying to find a cocktail bar or like a restaurant based on reviews. I care a lot about, I won't go to a place that doesn't have good reviews, or if there's nothing on the menu I would order, I won't go there. But all of that was removed since I didn't have my phone. And for a while we just wandered around, but I found myself noticing so much more. I would say it probably replicated like 80% of what it is like to be traveling to a new city, because I guess 1, truly was new in a sense that it was Harlem. I'd never been there. But then 2, since I didn't have my phone, I was just noticing a lot more of the architecture. There were like all of these beautiful murals that I was seeing that I probably would have missed looking down all the time. I was giving street performers and like buskers the time of day, whereas normally I would just like be a classic New Yorker and just like walk straight ahead. It was like around 6 p.m. So definitely the goal was to eventually find a place to get some dinner, some drinks. And since I didn't have the ability to search online, I was forced to look around corners and be like, oh, okay, that faraway building looks like it could be a restaurant. Maybe we should go walk in that direction, assess the vibe. So I would say all of that was not something I would normally do. And I do think even just all of that takes mental energy. So it did force me to be present in this Venn diagram of playfulness, connection, and flow. I do think without my phone, I was definitely in the flow. Did I feel like playfulness? Not really. I mean, I was like getting dinner and drinks. But I will say that when we did pick a spot, had dinner, had Avery in front of me, who like I'm always trying to spend better quality time with him, especially during the week, to create connection. I do think it was successful. I would say it was like 70-80% of an amazing dinner abroad, just with the simple removal of phone. Because also without the phone, like I lost sense of time too. It felt like we had a lot more leisure time to just eat dinner at our own pace and not worry if the food was going to be good or like what was the best thing on the menu or what everybody else was ordering, and just simpler times. So that was my experience.
Cute. The phone part is so interesting to like leave at home and recreate that experience though, because it's the city you live in. Like, yeah, New York City is huge and like it's a new neighborhood you've never been to, but like you kind of understand the vibe of the city, you know how to navigate it.
Yeah.
So when you have your phone, it just makes it that much easier. Whereas if you're in Tokyo, even if you have your phone, it's still completely new and you don't know how to navigate the city. So like the combination, you're like, oh my God, completely new, exploring. This is like being abroad traveling.
Yeah, I definitely could see doing this on a regular basis. Quality time, no distractions. What did you do for your fun experiment?
Well, I had two fun experiences. One was unintentionally fun and one was intentionally fun. So my unintentionally fun one was my book club. I had a book club this week and we just went to one of the girls' houses. She cooked gumbo and angel food cake. It was amazing. We went to the bars after and like played darts and no one was on their phones. We were all just chit-chatting and it was so much fun. It kind of reminds me of being in college a little bit, like those casual fun nights. Mm-hmm. The only thing about that experience that's different than my more intentionally fun experience is like alcohol was involved. And I really question how much alcohol plays a role in fun, at least for me personally. Like, I hate that it does. I always have more fun when I have like 2 drinks than when I don't. I hate that. My more intentionally sober fun experience is I've been feeling like I need to glow up lately. So I went to the mall with my fiance and we picked out new clothes. I went to Sephora, did a makeup haul.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like experimenting. I'm going for. I don't want to look the same as I did like literally 6 years ago because I haven't transformed anything about my look. And it also feels creative. I feel like my sober fun activities have to be like slightly creative. And yeah, I mean, we were like screwing around in Abercrombie and like cracking jokes the whole time and like had dinner at the mall. I don't know. It was a good time.
That date reminds me so much of high school fun. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs and that was the only thing you could do. You went to the mall with your friends and your parents would drop you off. This was before the age of smartphones. So just like chilling, walking around the mall. Other than the quality time, obviously, that you got to spend with your partner, what about that experience do you think made it so fun?
Well, definitely just like being silly in a public place. I mean, I'm 29, he's 32. So like we're just being silly adults, like sober. That's fun.
That's like that playfulness aspect.
Yeah.
This other couple I was talking to recently, I was on a double date with Avery and them. And randomly in the middle of dinner, they were like, so do you guys play pranks? And we were like, on each other? Like, what do you mean? And they were like, lately what we've been doing is we'll play pranks on other people in public. And it's like what we do all the time now. Like, we'll go shopping and I'll be at a furniture store and I'll go up to the sales associate, ask him like a purposefully stupid question, but like deliver it totally deadpan.
That's so funny.
Now I'm thinking back to that example and being like, oh, okay. Sounds like they were doing something right. They were truly adopting that playfulness mindset.
That's funny. I want to do that. That sounds really fun. Ruben and I have something like slightly, it's not playing pranks or anything, but like whenever we're checking out at grocery store anywhere, we do like the guessing game of how much it's going to cost down to the cent. We've gotten really good at it. And then we always include the cashier in it. We're like, how much do you think it's going to be?
Oh, that's fun.
Take bets on everybody.
Have you seen on TikTok the video where, I don't think this is a trend. I've literally just seen this one viral video, but this couple is like, the guy's filming and he's like, guess my fart. And the girl makes some noise with her mouth. That's like a fart sound. And then he farts and it's the exact same noise and they're both cheering.
That is absurd.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm not adopting that one. That's cute for them, not adopting it.
Yeah, so I think we're not alone in this feeling that it just feels much harder to have fun lately in the modern world, since fun is not something that adults feel they can have often to make it seem special and like outside of their norm. They do splurge. Fun nowadays is so associated, especially in social media, with money. Doing extravagant things to have fun. Even, frankly, like our two experiences that we talked about, both of those things cost money. I was at a nice restaurant. You were buying clothes and makeup. This idea of fun has definitely been commodified.
Totally. There's like a whole industry of adult entertainment. People spend so much money going to concerts or even to the movies. I got a video served to me on TikTok that was this guy and he's like, I'm a professional party coach and like going out and partying is actually really good for your mental health. And I thought it was satire because it was just B-roll footage of him like raving, absolutely fucking going hard at these raves. And I was like, this cannot be serious. And then as the video went on, he was serious. And I was like, wow, this is profound. So he's like talking about how being completely loose and partying, like whether sober or under the influence, is good for your mental health because it fosters trust in strangers and people around you, and that contributes to your sense of well-being. And I'd never heard that take before. And I was like, that's actually really interesting. Because then again, back to college partying as fun example, it is fun, even in New York City when I was living there, to like go out to a bar or a club somewhere where you're surrounded by a bunch of people and you're all in the same state of mind. You're all there intentionally to have a good time. You can bump into anybody and say hi. You're all kind of around the same age. It feels like everyone there is a potential friend. And that is really fun and cool. So if you let yourself be in that vulnerable party space, it's a good time. So his entire coaching business is teaching people how to get into that mindset and kind of get over their social anxieties so they can tap into the wellness aspect of partying.
Almost like therapy or like fitness coaches helping you change yourself.
Yes.
And how much does he charge?
$200 an hour.
Dang.
Yeah.
He's making a good living.
He's making a great living. And he also has packages. Like, first of all, his name is Evan Cudworth. He's a very well-educated person. He went to U Chicago, lives in LA. He was in the music industry. That's why he's really familiar with the rave scene and everything. And then he got laid off during the pandemic. And he used to have not like substance abuse issues, but he was just drinking too much. And then he became sober. And part of his coaching business is helping people get over the social anxieties of being out while not being under the influence of any substances. And so he has all of these different packages, from like calling you in the morning for a quick 15-minute pep session and like doing mindfulness training with you, to like having anti-anxiety pre-games so you're not drinking before a party. And then he like wingmans you when you're at the party and like texts you and asks how it's going and coaches you through the hard times so you don't pick up a drink. But he's very adamant that he's not a sober coach and he's not against substances, but he thinks people should have the ability to have fun without being under the influence. Oh, I read an article in the LA Times about him, and the article centered around this girl who, I think she was in her early 30s and she had social anxiety and was worried about like wellness, didn't want to drink anymore. She was a social media manager and this new startup wanted to hire her, but the culture at the new startup was like a work hard, play hard thing. And she was like, I don't want to go work for them because I have social anxiety and I don't want to party anymore. But they really wanted to hire her. So they hired Evan Cudworth to coach her as not a career coach, but a party coach. And so she agreed to take the job.
Wait, are we in Black Mirror? What the hell?
I know. I was like, a company is hiring this guy? But anyway, so she worked with him and her experience was phenomenal. She was like, I can go to parties now. I have so much more social connection. I can network better. Even like simple things like going to a coffee shop. I feel like I can walk up to anybody and say hi.
Oh my God, you have companies not even paying for maternity leave, and yet this company is paying for a party coach for one of their prospective employees. Holy shit.
Real. Like, it's so insane.
In like a corporate context, what comes to mind about commodification of fun for me is team events and how I've, of course, participated in team events, but I've also actually planned some. There's so many team event providers out there who are like, we curate this very specific type of experience where you're not going to get that intimate because obviously you don't want to get too close to your coworkers. You don't want anything inappropriate to happen. But it's still this generated fun to get you out of your comfort zone. And I feel like a lot of the types of events that really take off when it comes to team events, like I'm thinking escape rooms. There's this digital version of escape room with paint and like lasers, and it's called like Beat the Bomb. I'm thinking of like scavenger hunts. Like I've planned a museum scavenger hunt for a team event.
Really?
Yeah. It feels like it almost like harkens back to these things we really liked in childhood. It is like kind of games for adults.
Well, it's funny because all of those things are only things you would do in a work environment. Like I would never go do that with my actual friends. One of the mental health benefits of having fun is increased productivity. And so companies have really taken this on like, oh, you need to connect with your coworkers and have fun to actually be productive. So like there's totally an agenda behind it, as we know, of course. So it is literally forced fun to make you more productive. And especially like tech companies are trying to push that a lot. So that's where you get like the ping pong tables in the office and like, the beer fridge. But I saw a ton of think pieces about people being like, do not force fun on me at work, please. I have no interest in doing this. And people actually see it as like a burden because you're already working and then you're expected to do these extra 5 hours of team building exercises when you could just be doing leisure time on your own. So my take is you cannot force it at all. Like not company wide, we're going to have fun today. When those events happen, they like, of course, weren't that fun.
I feel the same way with like when I watch the dating shows on Netflix, the matchmaking shows like Indian matchmaking and Jewish matchmaking. I'm pretty sure the dates they go on, they must be like planned by people on the show. Maybe the contestants do think of the ideas, but I find it so often like ridiculous what they do. The dates they go on are like, let's go throw axes together. Or let's
that's
go
a
like
normal one.
That's
People
what?
do that.
I don't think that's normal.
It's so
I'm just
normal.
like, to me, there's no difference between that and an escape room or something where you're like, you've got an institution that is there to inject playfulness into you. Like, how could you not feel playful, I guess, if you're throwing an axe? I don't know.
Yeah, like there is like an industry around this. Maybe like the lack of third spaces is the reason that we have to be so intentional and literally have an axe throwing place that's like, you're going to have fun here. And this is where you go on a date instead of going to the local market where there's going to be like a nighttime dancing and band in the street like there would have been in like the 30s because that doesn't exist anymore.
So given that there's all of these businesses that are selling fun, obviously it must be like really important to us beyond just like the enjoyment factor. I'm curious what you found on the topic of how fun actually affects physical and mental health.
Fun is surprisingly really, really important. And all of the research supports this. Mental health experts want us to have more fun and playfulness in our life. Not only does it relieve stress, it supercharges your learning, it connects you with others. It makes you more productive, as I mentioned before. And actually the effect of being serious, not having fun and being isolated, because social connection is interconnected with fun and play, it can be the stress and deterioration equivalent of 15 cigarettes a day. Feeling serious and isolated. Yeah. So I found that really interesting because a lot of people are foregoing fun social connection experiences for wellness because they perceive staying out late, maybe having a drink or two is so detrimental to their health. But actually being isolated can have such a negative physical health effect. Like it rapidly accelerates dementia, stress, hypertension. So very important to go out and have fun.
When you say that, do you mean like a compounded effect over time? Like if you feel lonely over the course of 10 years, that's equivalent to having smoked 15 cigarettes per day for those 10 years?
Yeah, so there's research done by Daniel Cox, who is the director of the Survey Center on American Life. And he says that you need to have 4, 5, or 6 friends to start not seeing those negative effects of isolation.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And how often do you have to see those friends? Because having friends is different than like seeing them on a regular basis. Like what if you don't live in the same place as your friends?
You like have to be around people physically. He doesn't go into specifics about like see your friends this many times a week. But the reason that I'm talking about like friendship and relationships interchangeably with fun is because of all of those social connections with fun that we were talking about. Essentially, you need to have not only very close friends, but what they call loose friends, acquaintances. And you need to have a lot of them because then you feel like you're part of a tribe and you feel connected.
Wow. Counterintuitive. I've always thought that like having close friends is more important than having a large group of acquaintances. I have heard, like I've seen research that weak social connections are actually really important for societal change and like somebody's influence. Rosa Parks, for example. Why was it Rosa Parks who was able to spark this movement around civil rights? There had been people before her who had refused to sit at the back of the bus, but she apparently was a person who had a lot of these weak social connections. She was a really involved member of her church. She had all of these social groups she was a part of who cared about her. And so when she got arrested, yes, they showed up for the cause, but they also showed up because they cared about Rosa Parks. Even if they weren't her best friend, like because they were in her network, they showed up because they knew her or like knew somebody who knew her, was good friends. And, you know, it's interesting to hear the research that you found on how that can actually impact your own mental health, your own happiness, and your own life. More than just, obviously, if you know a lot of people, maybe that helps you have more influence on more people.
Yeah, I think likening it to having a tribe is really interesting because, I mean, we still have our little monkey brains, right? Like we're primal and we like feeling like we're part of a broader community. And we talk so much on the pod about how community contributes to well-being, and this is just a symptom of that. You need to have not only your 3 close friends, but like out in nomadic times, if you only had 3 people you were close to, you were probably dead. Like you were an outcast. You need like 100 people that you could be like, yo, can I get some berries? You know, we need to see that in modern day with having a bunch of loose social connections. And I do think that that checks out too. Like, again, going back to college, not to like keep bringing this up, but like you have so many loose social connections from like being in classes with people. And then when you go out somewhere and you can say hi to like 30 people at the bar, that feels really good. You're like, I'm a social butterfly, but we don't get that as adults.
It's reminding me of like also if you're the fan of somebody like a K-pop group or Taylor Swift and you go to their concert, even if you don't know people, you feel like you're part of the same tribe because you are fans of the same people and you have a lot of the same shared experiences and like same connections. It's interesting because it's like, what is a weak social connection, right? It could be somebody you kind of know but don't know that well, or it could just be someone who maybe you don't know at all on the surface, but actually because you're both a part of this community, you feel naturally connected to them because you share the same passion.
Yeah, that feels like the modern replacement for having all of these weak social connections, like the fast tracked way to feel that when you don't actually have it, honestly. There's a term that I had never actually heard of before, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but it's homophily. It means that you surround yourself romantically and platonically with like-minded people. And having these looser connections introduces you to more diverse people who might introduce you to new hobbies, new ways of viewing the world. These loose friends often become your spouse in earlier generations. So we could obviously see the effects of people not having these loose acquaintances in today's world. Like you have to go on dating apps. You don't just like randomly meet people at the bar anymore. And like people report only having 1 or 2 close friends. This generation has way less friends and acquaintances than previous generations. And there's a chart that we can insert in the video here that you can see as the generations age, they have more and more friends. And Gen Z is the most lonely and less friend-filled generation.
Interesting. Wait, so but as people age, I mean, obviously if I'm a 50-year-old, maybe I had more opportunities to make friends, but that's not what you mean, right?
I mean that the world has changed. So earlier generations had more friends and continue to have more friends in old age. So like a 65-year-old will report having like 10 close friends, where an 18-year-old will report having 2.
Wow.
I know you did research on the history of fun. So I'm curious, what did you find? Like, is it actually harder in modern day, or is this just something that we're kind of like making iPhones an excuse?
I found this article that I thought just put it really wonderfully. I'll link it in our Patreon, but it's from Scope Mag, and the author Lisa Mikason, she has a PhD in anthropology. She's going to put this a lot better than I can. She says, in the long sweep of history, we have never been richer or healthier. We have never had so many consumer goods to buy at such high quality and such low prices. Our boredom can be alleviated at the touch of a button. Yet much of the time we feel disengaged and hollow, our highest intensity experiences somehow inauthentic and lacking in comparison with the simpler enjoyments of our youth. That quote really resonates with me. That's exactly what I feel. And so, yeah, I did want to look into, is it just a feeling? Do we have anything measuring happiness over time? Or is it, again, just the rose-colored glasses looking back and how people always think previous generations were happier than us? I found this study called the Princeton Affect and Time Survey that was done in 2006, where they surveyed about 4,000 people and looked at what people actually do with their time each day. Because, of course, how we spend our days is how we live our lives, right? So they surveyed these people. They had them break down in 2 sections, their whole 24 hours of a day. And they categorized things like doing paid work, doing laundry, taking care of kids, making dinner, all the things that you might imagine. They then had them rate these things on a U scale, an unhappiness scale, which was these 5 measures: happy, sad, interested, stressed, tired, and in pain. On a scale of 1 to 6, how would you rate you were feeling when you were doing each one of these activities? They then clustered together activities that scored similarly. So the lowest rated cluster, the one that causes the most unhappiness, is this group that includes receiving medical care, seeking government services, and doing homework. Makes sense. The next highest is paid work, working for the man. Yeah. Slightly higher is mundane chores, which is lower in interest than paid work, but does score a little higher than it overall. So you've got how a lot of people spend their time, which is at work or doing unpaid labor at home, right? Like mundane chores.
Yeah.
These things do not make us happy. Then you've got slightly higher. Cluster 4 is a mixture of activities such as watching TV, cooking, gardening, I would consider these to be a mix between leisure. Like cooking could be obviously because you have to cook for your family or something you enjoy, but they're not fun, right? Fun, how we're describing it, at least. To me, this is the difference between winding down after a long day, putting on a TV show, and like true fun experiences where I'm feeling super engaged.
Yeah.
Next, you've got activities such as writing, using a computer. Using a computer, again, it was a survey done in 2006, so pre-Facebook even. So I don't know, using a computer to like write your blog, or like what were you doing? I don't think it was scrolling on social media because the survey was done before that time.
Yeah.
And then finally, the highest rated cluster on enjoyment and interest is religious activities, exercise, attending parties, listening to music, playing with children, other forms of recreation. So kind of what you would expect. Yeah, because the endorphins, right? You're like, not for me.
Okay. After exercise, yeah. During, I don't know.
So they did this study in 2006. They then compared it against the last 4 decades. So since the 1960s, how have people been spending their time? Because obviously in the last 4 decades, we've gotten inventions like the washing machine. You don't have to do laundry by hand. We've got improvements that you would think would give us more time for leisure and like theoretically more time for fun. But actually what they found is there's really been no change in the share of time that we actually spend on these really high enjoyment activities in the last 4 decades. So even though the time dedicated to the category of mundane chores has decreased, the time for neutral downtime activities such as watching television has increased. So basically what we've done is we've replaced mundane chores, which ranks fairly low, with something that ranks only slightly higher, which is neutral leisure activities. We haven't actually taken that additional time and invested it in our highest enjoyment categories. We haven't gone and had more recreation time or like had more social connection with people. Since this study was done before social media, I really wasn't able to find distinct studies on how social media has impacted this.
We can make very educated guesses on how that would have affected it. Because you saying that it's pretty on par with how it used to be, I'm like, that doesn't feel right.
Well, that's what I feel too. But oftentimes when I look at these bigger studies, the effects tend to be much more mild than like I would have expected. Another example is when I was looking into this, I also looked at how we're like spending our time in the US. Is that really different than how other countries are spending their time? Because again, in my brain, my bias would be to say, well, Americans must be like unhappier than some of the Mediterranean countries or like France or Spain or Italy, where they value rest, they value leisure a lot more. I feel like the American, you always have to be working, you always have to be hustling mentality surely must make us unhappier. And I'll pop the little graphic in, but actually research on this, how do people spend their time across the world? And the US, yes, we do spend more time at work compared to like Spain, France, Italy, Greece. But actually, when it comes to time spent with our friends or other leisure time, it doesn't differ that much from those countries. So I guess to me, it always feels like when you do look at the data, I find that the effects tend to be more mild. Or maybe the data is just not capturing what we're actually feeling on a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think that is often the case. Like it anecdotally feels so much more intense than it is in real life. And I think like I did see 2 sources where it was like significant and tangible, the differences. And that was the Friends study that I had mentioned, where it was very significantly different between generations. And then also there is a chart that we can input that I have here that shows the sharp decrease in weekday socializing and communicating over the past 20 years. It goes from like 36 minutes a day to 26 minutes a day in the past 20 years. So I think those are very tangible, but then like these subjective studies or like how people are perceiving happiness or like leisure time or anything like that, like it does seem to be way more mild. So maybe it is a little bit of that nostalgia, rose-colored glasses, the way that we look back on things versus how they actually are.
Yeah, I also think it's hard to like control for all the variables, right? Because obviously even our perception of fun changes a lot depending on any given religious, political, social climate. Like fun in a Puritan religious sense could be seen as a bad thing, something that's like frivolous. And I found this psychoanalyst who published in 1958. The writer Martha Wolfenstein suggested that society was seeing the rise of a new fun morality, which she describes as an explicit social imperative to have fun all the time in all areas of life. Which suspiciously sounds a lot like what we feel today. Far from being positive, she saw this fun morality as problematic. First, it created a source of anxiety in which one felt ashamed or secretly worried that one wasn't having as much fun as one ought to be. 2, it triggered a strange new pressure for parents, educators, and even employers to ensure that the people around them were always enjoying themselves.
Oh my God.
Which blows my mind because I'm like, that is exactly what we're experiencing now. And she wrote this as early as 1958.
That is crazy. But that puts like so succinctly why, the weird social pressure is such a great way to say that. Because you do, like, I feel that all the time. Like when you're out, you don't want to be the boring one. You want to look like you're having fun. And then like, I don't know, especially if you're like an empathetic person, like I'm highly attuned to how other people are feeling and what they're thinking. And I'm always worried about that. So I'm always like, are they having fun? Am I being boring? I got to make sure they're entertained. And it takes you out.
Totally. Whether you have fun reflects upon if you yourself are fun and like fun to be around. And you don't want people to be like, well, Lucy's not fun to be around. We're not going to invite her anymore. That's the fear.
Yeah, that's so funny that she mentioned employers as early as the 50s too.
I know, which is like, that blows my mind because it's just like history is all these cycles, right? Because she was reacting towards the fact that prior to World War II, fun was seen as a really negative thing. All of the sociologists of that time were saying kids shouldn't even have fun. It's excitement of the nerves. It's bad for you. You should be serious or whatever. And it wasn't until after World War II, 1940s and later, where now it was like, okay, no, American kids are strong. They should have fun. It's a part of building strong muscles. Play is good for your development as a child and like good for your brain. And then here she is writing in 1958 about how people took it too far. And even then, the commodification of fun is happening in 1950, which it's like happening now.
We're just performing fun.
Exactly.
It's literally performance.
Exactly.
Yeah, that kids shouldn't even have fun thing reminds me. Do you know where Wheaties came from?
Like the cereal?
Like cereal in general. I think it was cornflakes. Yeah, cornflakes and like Wheaties and stuff. They thought that it would stop people from masturbating, like kids from masturbating.
Because they taste so
bland
bad?
Food. Yes.
Oh my God.
Because it was bland and it wouldn't like excite the humors. And it wasn't until later that they put sugar on cereal. Maybe it was during 1958 when people decided it was okay to have fun. They started putting sugar on cereal. Wasn't a problem anymore. We went from cornflakes to Frosted Flakes. It was a good time.
To Cocoa Puffs, Lucky Charms. Now it's like we have the opposite problem. People are like railing against the sugary cereal. I mean, dude, we just find fault with whatever our current trend is, you know? The grass is always greener.
For sure.
When I first wanted to do this episode, I very much thought the fact that it's so hard now for adults to have fun is like an our generation thing, a thing that is affecting us because of our unique set of circumstances. Social media, climate change, just disaster after disaster. And I think after doing some of the research and like stepping back, I'm realizing that maybe it's just a whole bunch of cycles. And, you know, even in the 50s, people thought that we were facing the same problems that we're facing today.
Yeah, definitely. It's nothing new for sure. We just have different manifestations of that problem exacerbated by technology. But we did manage to have fun this week. So I'm proud of us. I think we should continue to do that.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a check-in in 6 months and see if we learned anything from ourselves and have managed to incorporate more fun in our lives. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Hopefully you had some fun listening to us.
I'm going to clap like when the plane lands.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thank you. I'll take it back.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll just drop in a sound effect of clapping for us because we successfully landed the plane in this episode. Cheers to us. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoy the pod, we would love for you to give us a follow and rate us on Apple Podcasts, which helps us get the word out and reach new listeners. Full transcripts and show notes are available on Patreon, where if you choose to become a patron, you'll also get access to bonus content, our monthly book club, and our eternal gratitude.
If you'd like to get in touch or suggest a topic for a future episode, email us at everythingiknowaboutpod@gmail.com or DM us across all socials at EikaPod, that's EIKA pod. Thanks for listening and see you next week.